I'm doing this for health reasons. I don't want cancer to come back, because you read all these things that meat is cancer causing and all these things. So I went vegan, making vegetable smoothies and all these different things. And I'm trying so many things. I even did once a grape diet where I literally consumed nothing but grapes for, I think it was like 3 weeks for maybe a month. I tried everything possible. At this point, you're reaching for anything you can get. I did this for 2 years. It got to the point where I lost probably 20 to 30 pounds of muscle, started getting just super fatigued. I had testosterone of a 90-year-old. It was insane. Everything was going downhill. I was thin, I was frail, and the biggest thing was my psoriasis was absolutely inflamed to the wazoo. It was insane.
Okay, good morning, everybody. We have Adam here. First of all, thank you for taking the time out to do this.
Appreciate it.
Where are you currently located?
Charlotte, North Carolina.
North Carolina. Okay, very nice. So that's far enough north to miss all the hurricane stuff. Brett, I understand you're doing okay down there. So I think it mostly hit the other side of the state, it seems like. So anyway, well, Adam, tell us a little bit about yourself.
Yeah, so I was actually born in London. Moved over to the States when I was 7 years old, and then been here ever since. Actually here in Charlotte, the same place for over 26 years. Just been personal training for my career for probably over now 10 years. You know, there's been a lot of things that have come into my life that have got me to this point now. You know, some things were a lot of setbacks, but they brought me to this point where I am now. And I feel I'm in the best place in my life dealing with a lot of those things that occurred.
Well, just, I guess, to be more specific, you're in the best place of your life. How is that? How so? How do you define that?
Just with a lot of my ailments and things that I've gone through, changed my perspective greatly on just outlook on life, how I live my life, how I carry myself, interactions with people just completely changed. And, obviously I'll get in more into that kind of my story and all that. Going through all those tough times definitely put me in a clearer state of mind. And, I can now kind of use my experiences to help so many other people out there dealing with probably the same issues or, something related to it.
Well, they often say, what doesn't kill us makes us stronger often. And,
Yep.
So let's kind of get into it. What kind of, you said you had some ailments and adversities. Would you mind sharing some of those?
Yeah. So, when I was younger, not to get too far back off track, but, when I was first kind of around like 19, I had a lot of acne. So I, got introduced to a drug called Accutane, and you probably know of it, and some other people might have taken it or whatnot. But, I remember I couldn't stay on it, for my acne just because it completely made my just skin absolutely terrible. So I got off of that, and then fast forward maybe like three months after that, and I started developing psoriasis. That's kind of just like the backstory of kind of like where I developed psoriasis. But then kind of fast forward all the way to age 30 years old, I was diagnosed with a nonseminal germ cell tumor. It was in my mediastinum. It was a 5-inch mass in diameter in my chest. One night I was at a wedding and started having chest pains from a deep breath that I took in. And all of a sudden it just would not go away. I thought maybe it was like digestion issues or something like that. But this pain I'd never felt this before. Thought I was kind of having more of like a heart attack. And so kind of, me, I was like, well, I'll rest it off, like kind of sleep it off. And then woke up the next day, still continuing to be in a ton of pain every time I took a deep breath in. So went to the emergency room, and I went to the urgent care, and they said, wow, we took a scan of your chest and your heart looks huge. And I was like, okay, that's not good. And they were like, well, since it's the weekend, check with your doctor on Monday. and then we'll go from there. I'm like, well, you just told me my heart was enlarged and I'm having chest pain. So I think I'll go to the emergency room instead. So rushed over there, and did some scans, and they basically determined that it was some type of lymphoma. So right there, just completely changed my life in just snap of the fingers. So kind of long story short, going through, from that day one, being diagnosed with cancer, trying to figure out what this was. They determined it was a non-seminal germ cell tumor. I went through a ton of tests. All those tests came back negative, actually, for trying to diagnose this thing. But due to all the symptoms I was having, it kind of linked it to a non-seminal germ cell tumor. Through that process, went through 4 rounds of chemo, had open chest surgery that I was flown to Indiana to get that done to remove the tumor. So all within a 6-month period, I went through all of this. So 4 rounds of chemo, got the open chest surgery. And then a month after the surgery, I was starting to have chest pains again. And I was like, what is going on? Thought it was cancer again. So immediately went to the scanning center, got some scans done, and they told me this was on the drive home. They called me and said, you need to get to the hospital right now. You have basically your right atrium is about to collapse. It's close to collapsing because of the fluid buildup from the invasive surgery that I just had. So that kind of really I broke down. I was crying, just rushing to the hospital, called my mom immediately and said, look, I'm going to go in to have a pericardial effusion. I have to basically drain the fluid around from the heart. Pretty close to kind of, could have been death at that point. So went and got that done. And then basically everything was kind of smooth sailing. It was a lot of healing after that. But then that's when my psoriasis completely just came back with a vengeance, covered my legs, my arms, my chest, my head, everywhere. And it was nice for a little bit because my psoriasis actually went away completely when I was doing chemo. It completely went away. And I know there's a lot of treatments out there that like methotrexate that they use for psoriasis patients. But anyway, it was nice. It went away, but then it came back with a vengeance. And so that was kind of my start to something's got to change here. This is ridiculous, and I'm on the road to healing at this point. So I'm trying to figure out things for myself. I'm starting to do a lot more research because once you go through something like this, you really start taking it upon yourself to advocate for yourself and really do as much research as you can. It can be overwhelming at times as well. But again, I had to do something rather than just take all this advice from, I want to say the specialists out there that were kind of just giving me the same answer over and over again, prescribing me things that I just knew wasn't going to help me. It was only going to put me further in a hole. So yeah, that's kind of when I took a turn on the journey to kind of get to my health to where it is now.
Yeah, a lot of times, as physicians, they never can answer us. Why am I having psoriasis? They don't really know, or they don't think, they don't really know. And they're just like, well, we don't know, but here's all the drugs you can do to take it. And you're right to use some of these same chemotherapeutic type drugs for psoriasis and others. And it can have a lot of side effects and it's expensive and on and on and on. And so how long ago was that when you went through that how many years ago was it that you went through the cancer surgery? 6 years.
I was 30 years. It was 2016. I went through that.
Okay. So you've got to this point where you're like frustrated. Hey, I don't want to be sick all the time. I'm going to do my own sort of research. So how did that go? Where did you start?
Yeah. So, and kind of give you a little background on me as well that I didn't mention earlier. I fell in love with bodybuilding. It was the first time that I found discipline in my life. I love the gym. I've always been into fitness, always been athletic. And bodybuilding was the one thing before all this occurred. I, got into bodybuilding, and it was the first time that I actually really ever did a diet, right? And at that point, my skin, I completely healed my skin within 30 days. Just from taking it from drinking and eating fast food sometimes and so to basically eating as clean as I could, the standard bodybuilding diet, my skin completely healed. So that was amazing to me that, cut my body fat low and just seeing how my skin improved just from implementing the nutrition that I did back then. And it still consisted of meat, some veggies, a lot of carbohydrates as well, mostly white rice. But basically, having that background, how I got started on the new healing process was, I was doing a lot of research, and unfortunately, it kind of steered me in the way of going vegan. The only reason was because when you kind of go through cancer and all these things, it's not really the cancer that was the problem that like caused a lot of stress and things of that nature, but it was the after effects of, am I going to get it again? I feel a pain here. What is that? Could it be cancer again? And you just go through and you're so paranoid and you do a lot of research on it. And this is the time that like game changers were coming out and all these things. And you're starting to take in all this information and you're like, this makes sense, blah, blah, blah. And you're like, I want to do it for my health. So, I went vegan again. I did it for, the right reasons. It was more for health for me. And again, so I went vegan and I literally went cold turkey just like that. One day I said, you know what? I'm not going to eat meat anymore. I'm not going to do this. Because at this point, my psoriasis was just, it was coming back. I had to do something. So I didn't want to take any biologics. I didn't want to go down that route because I know where that's going to get me. So I went vegan and I'm eating, making vegetable smoothies and all these different things. And I'm trying so many things. I even did once a grape diet where I literally consumed nothing but grapes for, I think it was like 3 weeks for maybe a month. I tried everything possible. At this point, you're reaching for anything you can get. I did this for 2 years. It got to the point where I lost probably 20 to 30 pounds of muscle, started getting just super fatigued. My hormone levels, I even got my testosterone checked at this point, and I had testosterone of a 90-year-old. It was insane. I actually have those results as well. But everything was going downhill. I was thin. I was frail. And the biggest thing was my psoriasis was absolutely inflamed to the wazoo. It was insane. So things weren't getting better. Mentally, though, it kind of made me feel better because I guess just the thought of, okay, I'm doing this for health reasons. I don't want cancer to come back because, you read all these things that meat is, cancer causing and all these things. So my mind isn't really connecting with my body at that point. But then it got to the point where I was like, I got to make a change. So at this point, I chose to do another bodybuilding competition. I said, wow, I'm going to just hop into it. I love having that structure, that discipline. It was also a friend that also kind of talked me through it too. He was like, look, let's go back to what we used to do before. Let's incorporate meat back into our diet. And at this point, I was like, I'm not sure. I really want to give this, a go. And it'd been 2 years already. Started eating meat again. And within that month, my skin started to improve. I didn't completely cut out carbohydrates at that point. Still eating white rice, kind of back to my typical bodybuilding routine and diet. But the improvements were absolutely incredible just from putting back in, eating meat again. And it was mostly steak. I only stuck with steak at that point. But that's kind of like, getting back into my, transition from vegan to meat again.
Yeah, I'm just thinking bodybuilder, and you lose all this muscle and your skin is super inflamed with psoriasis, doesn't really make for a good stage presentation, I would imagine.
Not at all.
It's going to be a tough road to do. So, you incorporated the meat back in. How does that progress? Where are you at today? How are things working for you as far as retaining muscle and psoriasis and other issues? Any certain signs of recurrent cancer or anything like that?
No, so I've been in remission now for 6 years. I took it upon myself though to make sure that, and again, this was just my way of going about things, but I never got scans after the first year. I even asked my doctor. I said to him, I was like, and I researched this too. The more scans you get, could there be a chance of reoccurrence of cancer? And he said, absolutely. The more scans you get, more likely that cancer could return. So, dealing with maybe possibly that radiation and stuff. And I was like, you know what, if I'm good and clear after a year and I'm kind of working on my health, I didn't think it was necessary for me. My mindset's pretty strong to where I was determined to fight this thing and have it not return. So that was kind of where my mind was at that point. But then now going into kind of where I'm at now, building the muscle back, it took a long time. It took a long time to get my skin to where it is now. So it wasn't like an overnight thing, but I definitely saw the difference of when I was vegan to what I do now, which is primarily animal based, and the difference is night and day. And, I've documented all my pictures and this kind of journey through it all. And I mean, the results are incredible. To build that muscle back, there's just absolutely no way to do it how I was doing it. I was eating so much food when I was vegan. I just couldn't get in the amount of calories without feeling just bloated and I was still losing weight. Right. So there was no way to do it in my mind. So going back to meat, it was incredible. It made me feel better. My hormones shot back up. I went and got blood work later on, probably a year after. And then my levels have started returning back to normal. And it's great. So, now what I do, how I implement my diet and now is I just did another bodybuilding competition just recently, probably about 6 months ago. And I basically did a carnivore styled prep and consistent of high fat, high protein, zero carb. It was the best I've ever been, best I've ever felt mentally, physically. My performance was high in the gym, just everything. I can name every aspect of my life. It was better.
Hey folks, it's Dr. ShawnBaker here. If you guys are enjoying these success stories, well, you can become your own success story. You can do that by heading over to Carnivore.diet. You can sign up for a free 30-day trial and get started today. We're looking forward to supporting you. Our community is wonderful, and we'd love to see your success. Good for you for finding out what works. And I've heard that before. A lot of people, particularly in the physique competition, whether it's bodybuilding or some other version of that, I've heard a lot of people say that their carnivore prep has been kind of the easiest and they felt the best with that, which is interesting. The after effects of having cancer, every little twinge is like, is it cancer coming back? How has the diet affected you mentally now compared to, say, maybe when you're on a more plant-based diet? How
has it affected me mentally? I don't feel stressed. So when I eat more animal based, I don't feel like there's that worry there. And that sounds kind of weird. I feel satiated at the end of the day with every single meal. I feel good about what I'm eating now compared to before. Before I was like trying to do it for health reasons, but at the same time, it was like, I'd sit down with some veggies and stuff like that. And I'm like, no, I'm doing the right thing. But like something felt kind of off. It wasn't like I wasn't satisfied. I was kind of stressed out, kind of miserable, but now when I eat, I'm excited to eat, that I can't wait to cut up that ribeye or have eggs. And I feel like I can eat as much as I want of that stuff and not feel bloated. When I go to the bathroom, I'm regular. My stool's normal. And that's another thing. When I was vegan and going more plant-based, man, going to the bathroom was insane. I had hemorrhoids. The stool was hard. It was ridiculous. Every single time I go to the bathroom, it was a struggle. I'd be in pain even going to the bathroom. So all these things I experienced, now looking back, I'm like, wow, why did I stick that out for 2 years? But again, it was more of a mental aspect, and kind of going back to what you said, how did it affect me mentally? That kind of is what it was. It was completely kind of destroying me, but at the same time, my mentality at that time was it's health. It's kind of, I don't want cancer to come back. But now I look at the diet now that I'm on, I never have any fear of cancer coming back now. I mean, yeah, you get sometimes, it's been 6 years, but every now you get an ache and a pain. You sometimes think back like, oh, okay, what could that be? But now I've kind of gone through the process. I know it's a muscle pain or something like that because I'm also, a bodybuilder. I lift weights. So I'm always going to be sore. In regards to the nutrition and how it helps me mentally now, it's night and day.
What about, back when you were doing this vegan bodybuilding or attempting to and unsuccessfully sounds like, did you consider using maybe like isolates and protein powders and plant-based protein? Was that part of the deal?
Yeah. So when I was vegan, I'm not big on supplements. I never really have been. Now I've used supplements in the past. Absolutely. back when, before all this happened, I was taking the pre-workouts and the protein powders and all that stuff, anything to give me that competitive edge back then. But, as I got older, I realized it's just, to me, in my opinion, it's a waste of money. Why do I need a pre-workout at 20 years old? Why do I need a pre-workout at 36 years old? I should have all the energy in the world. And, that it just doesn't make sense to me. And, there's no connection there. But protein powder, I might still use every now and then. There's a good one, the Equipped protein powder, just the beef protein. Pretty awesome stuff. I like my supplement. If I'm going to supplement, it'll probably be a protein powder. And, as long as it's clean, I don't like a bunch of things in my products if I'm going to use it. So yeah, supplements. Back then I was doing plant-based proteins. I was doing B12. There was a bunch of things that obviously I was researching this, and there was a lot of things I knew was going to be missing in my nutrition. So I was trying to be as optimal as possible with this plant-based approach. But again, it just, I felt like I was just wasting a ton of money on things that weren't really giving me any more benefit.
You'd mentioned a little bit about your digestive health. How can you contrast the difference between how your guts feel now versus maybe back then?
Oh yeah. My gut, was absolutely wrecked back then. Bloating. I know it's kind of like, talking about poop and stuff, but when I would go to the bathroom, and this was even when I was just, eating just large amounts of carbs in general, not even back when I was vegan, but when eating large carbs in general, man, it wrecks my digestion. I was in the bathroom and I just could not pass my stool. It was so dense. And like I said, I was getting hemorrhoids, always completely bloated, extended gut, and you feel full, but you're not hungry. It's like, it's weird. You're bloated and full, but you're still hungry. So, yeah, my digestion was completely wrecked. Now, when I eat animal-based, I get no digestional issues at all. I'm regular in the bathroom, and I am regular. Like every morning, wake up, go to the bathroom. It's a routine now, and I'm basically intaking no fiber right now. Possibly, maybe here and there, maybe every now and then I might throw in a half an avocado or something like that. But even then, I can feel a shift in my digestion. But mostly when I'm animal based, my digestion is golden. I'm never bloated. The biggest thing was when I was plant based, I was so gassy. I mean, farting every single day, everywhere. Now I'm not gassy at all. So there's huge differences between the two.
And the psoriasis, is it completely gone now, or what's going on with the psoriasis?
No. So the psoriasis, I mean, like I know it's sent you some pictures, and I'm sure you saw how basically when I was plant-based, and I was basically, I mean, pretty like 95, 98% covered on my skin. Now I'm probably 3% covered on my skin. I mean, I've got maybe a little dot here and there on my elbow, maybe a little bit on my leg, but yeah, I'm not completely healed from psoriasis, but from what it was to what it is now, basically, if anybody saw me, they wouldn't know I had psoriasis at all. I know it, and I'm sure people that deal with psoriasis and eczema and all that go through it, they know what I'm talking about. But yeah, it's completely night and day.
And speaking of people that know you, I mean, obviously somebody has probably seen you make this transition over the couple of years. Has anybody commented one way or the other, thought what you're doing is bizarre, or what's the reaction been?
I get a lot of support. I mean, and one of the biggest supporters that I've had over the years are my parents, and they actually took the journey with me. That's how much they support me, because they actually transitioned with me when I went vegan, when I went strictly meat. They kind of follow the path to really support me. So they're incredible. And because the information is so compelling, especially back then, it was so compelling to go plant-based. It just made sense, especially coming off from having cancer. It was a no-brainer. But now I look back, I'm like, wow, missed a lot of signs there and bought into a lot of the propaganda. But again, that's another reason why I say, I'm in the best shape of my life mentally and physically, because, without all those things and going through, I always say cancer was the best thing that ever happened to me, and people think I'm crazy. I don't think that cancer was the best thing, but going through that process, made me, visit being vegan. And then being vegan, I know that wasn't good, but that experience took me to now where I'm at today. And, without it, I wouldn't be where I'm at. So yeah, I mean, that's huge.
And some people say, well, it worked for some people, some people it works for some people, it doesn't. Everybody's different. What is you mentioned your parents have gone through this journey. Did they are they like thinking it's better to go animal-based and plant-based? What's their perspective been or experience been?
Yeah. So, I think they do it out of support for me, but, and I appreciate it a lot. And sometimes even back then I'm worried about their health, right? We care as kids about our parents, and we just want them to be as healthy as possible. So, and plus me being a personal trainer, it's like, I'm always kind of like, come on, we got to move, we got to eat healthy and all this stuff. But yeah, I think it was more so just from their perspective, it was more just support for me. But, they've made huge changes, just by how, the journey that I've gone through. I mean, they've gone through it too. The crazy thing is, it's probably harder, for them going through, the experience with me being diagnosed with cancer, especially as a parent. They went through a lot. But I think, out of the support just for me, they've changed their health around for the better as well. Just implementing little things here and there, and the more information that we're given, obviously we try to put it to experience, and then hopefully that becomes our knowledge. Using that information through experience. So, but they've benefited greatly from it as well. And, they're not strictly carnivore, or, they just eat how they eat, but they're very mindful of it, and more so now,
When you mentioned your personal training, I don't know how long you've been doing it. Were you doing that while you were 97% covered with psoriasis? And that had to have been kind of painful or uncomfortable, right?
Yeah. So my mentality's always been pretty strong. So if it wasn't for bodybuilding, I don't think the outcome would have been as good. I really don't. When I was coming off of a bodybuilding competition right before I got diagnosed with cancer. So I believe, and I might be off on these dates just because my mind can't remember 6 years ago, but maybe I think I came off my last competition in like May of 2016. I was diagnosed June, like around my birthday, with cancer. So I remember coming off my last competition, and I was in great shape. Insane. My psoriasis wasn't there. I had cut down for a competition, so my skin started healing, and I felt amazing. There was no like telltale signs that I had cancer. The only thing that I felt was I was very, very lethargic. But a lot of times, after a competition, it's just kind of the way it goes. You are cutting down very low in body fat, so your hormones aren't as optimal as you would like, and you don't feel as good because you're very low in calories. And I just thought it was that, but it comes to find out it was 3 months later diagnosed with cancer. So that's why I felt so bad. Kind of leading into it was just a lot of fatigue, and I remember going to a doctor, and he said, are you taking any supplements? Or, stop the protein powder, stop the fish. I think I was taking fish oil at that time. He was like, stop the fish oils, and then we'll retest your testosterone. But at that point, I tested it because I felt so bad. And he was like, wow, your testosterone is of a 90-year-old. Like, it literally was. I think it was like at 90 or something like that. I can't remember. I can't remember the technical term for it, but it was very low testosterone. And at that point, I didn't know I had cancer. And I think that was the reason why I was just completely shot. And then, so.
When you were, so let me just get into the sort of the more details of the bodybuilding, because some people are going to be interested in that. So when you're like, maybe in off season or trying to put on muscle. What does the diet look like? Kind of an animal-based diet. How much protein are you getting? How much fat are you getting? And then what does the cut look like? How does that?
Yeah. So the last competition I just did, I did basically a carnivorous diet, a carnivorous diet. And my protein, I keep it pretty high. And this is kind of leading into a cut. It's been ups and downs as far as like a bulk. I don't like to call it a bulk. I think it's unnecessary a lot of times. And this is another point that I wanted to make is, the reason why I believe, especially, and this could help a lot of people out with psoriasis and eczema and a lot of ailments, I'm sure. Bodybuilding is a very extreme sport, right? So yeah, you're cutting your body fat down to a very low percentage and you're cutting calories pretty low. Now I don't recommend that for people, but I think when you start cutting body fat off your frame and you do it at, keep your body fat at a very healthy percentage, and you start incorporating these, higher fats and proteins in your diet, I think that is where we're going to see the clearance of our skin start to happen and the lesson of inflammation in our bodies. Because I see it every single time. Every time I compete, start cutting my calories down, start losing body fat, start training, and my skin starts to clear up. And again, in every one of these situations, I'm always having protein, always been meat in my diet. So it's been a huge benefit. But my kind of protocol this time going into this competition was my fats were probably hovering around 160, 180 grams of fat, and maybe about 300 grams of protein, something around there. I couldn't tell you the exact because it does trickle down as far as getting closer to the competition. But keeping everything really high, my carbohydrates were basically zero. There's always carbs in there somewhere, maybe 5 grams here or there. But yeah, just keeping my protein super high and then just slowly cutting fats down and trickling them down until you kind of get to the places you want to be.
And just for frame of reference, what weight are you walking around at? What's your competition weight? 300 grams of protein, 180 grams of fat.
I get down to about 165.
Okay.
Yeah.
So that's a decent amount of food. Yeah. I'm just trying to doing the calculation. 300 grams of protein is 1,200 calories, and 180 grams of fat is roughly, 1,600 calories or something like that. So you're somewhere in almost 3,000 calories, 2,800 calories. So still a decent amount of food yet. Yeah.
That's usually at the start of kind of prep. And then, you kind of start bringing it down from there. Do you bring
the fat down or the protein down or both down at the same time?
I sometimes play around with it. Sometimes I'll bring, most of the time I'll bring the fat down, but I like to keep the protein high. Mm-hmm. Just because I get to eat more. Right. I love to eat. So if I bring the fat down, then I get to kind of keep the protein higher.
Yeah. So eat a little leaner cuts. Yeah. You and me both. I like to eat a lot too. How about your training? Because some people say, well, you can't train for bodybuilding without carbs in the diet. I mean, were you still able to go to the gym and train hard?
Oh yeah, absolutely. So, and this is kind of the extreme side of bodybuilding, but once you get down to a low percentage of body fat and you're close to competition, you feel pretty bad. Okay. So it's an extreme, way of thinking about it. But if you were to, at the start of my prep, probably for the first, without cutting calories, obviously, if you're too far in a deficit, then you're not going to feel optimal and good. But when I'm at a maintenance level, I feel absolutely incredible. Like right now, I'm not training for a competition or anything and eating high fat, high protein. And I don't really necessarily track right now. I've been doing it for so long. I kind of know about around where I'm at and I have all the energy in the world. And the other thing, people believe that, you have to have carbs in order, to, give you energy. Obviously they do give you energy, but your body also, makes glucose itself if you don't have the carbs available. Correct. If I'm correct on that.
Yeah, you're certainly correct. Yeah. I mean, that's the thing. We have gluconeogenesis, and we can, do glycolysis of the liver glycogen. So, or glycogenolysis rather. And yeah, no, it's not a problem typically for most people. Do you do a lot of cardio with this? Are you one of the guys that does, cardio twice a day to get leaner, or is it more diet and lifting related?
Yeah, I mean, I did do cardio this time around, but it just depends. It depends on what I look like, how I feel. It just really depends on what it is. Sometimes I'll just train a little bit longer in the gym. I mean, as long as I'm kind of getting that heart rate up and getting those calories burned, then, it doesn't really matter if I'm taking steps, if I'm doing this or that, as long as I'm kind of burning those calories.
Yeah. And so, has anybody, I know you said your parents are very supportive of you. Has anybody given you, I don't know if you're on social media much, do you get any pushing back against you saying, eating meat is bad for you, and it's going to give you heart disease. It's going to just, we're just going to boil the oceans from cow farts or anything. Do you get any of that pushback?
No, I don't. I really don't. I mean, I try to get on social media. I try to build it up, but it's hard for me. I'm in between. I'm that generation that's in between that kind of didn't have it, but then had it. I try to build it up as much as I can and use it to the best of my ability for business or personal training or clients of that nature. But everyone's pretty much supportive. I've had, last time I competed, it was funny. I had somebody post on there randomly, if you think he got this muscle from eating animal based, and then threw a bunch of stuff like taking GH and all this stuff. I'm like, I'm 165 pounds here. But it was kind of comical. I even wrote back and even challenged them to, I even posted my blood work, before and after. So, I'm not opposed to, speaking up about it, but I don't really have a lot of people reaching out in a negative way at all. A lot of people are very intrigued by it. They're like, whoa, what are you eating? Or I'll sometimes post my meals on there, and they're, some people are like, oh, I need this recipe, or, but yeah, positive most of the time.
Yeah. I, very often I still get accused of taking drugs, or are you taking steroids? I never have. And it's just funny that they continue to accuse you of that. As a personal trainer, are you influencing other people's diets? I mean, do you have vegans come in that you say that, hey, this isn't the best idea? Or do you even consider diet when you're training with people?
Yeah, so I do, because I think nutrition is the biggest thing. I think it's the key to making a change, right? I've been personal trainer for a long time, and when it comes to just working out, we know you can't outwork a bad diet. And the other thing, kind of, I don't like to use the word diet. I don't like to, I usually say nutrition. But again, the thing is, I don't necessarily even like to call myself a carnivore, because and the reason being is because, there's days where I, do enjoy, maybe a half cup of white rice or something like that, or, and I feel like sometimes giving myself a label, and I've always been this way. Even when I was vegan, it kind of made me think a little bit differently. I kind of gave myself that label, and then when it didn't work for me, then now it's kind of hypocritical to what I was going to next. It just didn't sit right with me. So I kind of don't like to put myself in a box, because, you never know. At the end of the day, things might change, or, you might find something else that works for you. And I just like to have that option and that space to kind of, explore those different avenues if they come about. But again, things that work for me don't necessarily, it's true, they don't necessarily work for other people. Right. So when it comes to clients, absolutely work on their nutrition. But again, I don't push, go carnivore, or if they're vegan, then, I kind of help them out with keeping them on the path that they want to be in, but giving them options as well and kind of informing them on certain things that might benefit them. But if they don't necessarily want that, then I'm not going to force that upon them and say, hey, I can't train you anymore, So, I work with them, and, some of the things that I put on social media or something, they might look at it and say, that's interesting. I never thought about that. And then maybe they try it. Again, it's everybody's experiences. And, I just try to help them in the best way I can and in what they're working with.
Yeah, I mean, I think it makes sense to maintain flexibility and not paint yourself into a corner. Although I do know some people that refuse to work with vegans. I know the late Charles Poliquin said he just wouldn't work with them because he just felt it was a waste of his time, basically. But he was trying to produce elite level athletes and Olympians and so on and so forth. And so he said, I'm not wasting my time with this if you're not going to fix your diet, which is kind of an interesting thing. So as far as, so you said, dabble here and there, you put a few white rice or some whatever in the diet. What is a typical, like now in the off, I assume you're in the off season now. What does a typical day of eating look like for you currently?
So right now, this morning I had 6 eggs, 6 whole eggs, 3 strips of bacon. And then later on, I'll probably have some chuck eye steaks. And the thing is, I love to eat, and that actually might be one of my downfalls because, and I will say this as far as no matter what diet you're doing, sometimes if you're eating too much, that's where I believe that the inflammation comes in. Even if it's the good stuff, sometimes you can just overdo it, put on too much body fat. And that's where I think the inflammation can, arise and your skin starts getting a little worse, especially when you're dealing with psoriasis or eczema. But so it's hard for me sometimes to even control eating the good things, right? So like steaks, so later on today, I'll probably have some chuck eye steaks, but I probably won't have 6 ounces. I'll probably have 12 ounces. But it's satisfying to me. I never overstuff myself. It's just my appetite is huge. And I love to eat. And I don't know if it's just because I've been doing it for so long and it's kind of been a regimented thing where, you got to eat to train. And it's more so for a purpose for me rather than just enjoyment. So I'll have maybe some chuck eye steaks or a ribeye. And then 2 to 3 hours later, might have maybe some more eggs. Trying to think, I actually make your pudding quite a lot. The egg pudding. Okay. I watched your YouTube video a long time ago, and I make that almost every week. It's satisfying. I even put maybe a scoop of the protein in there and make it kind of like a cocoa chocolate egg pudding, and that kind of satisfies my sweet tooth. I got a huge sweet tooth, but for me, with my psoriasis, I am so disciplined. I don't eat refined sugars ever. Carbohydrates are super limited. Like I said, maybe once every now and then. Might have the furthest I go to like sugar or sweets will be like maybe some blackberries or raspberries or something like that. But for the most part, I keep it strictly animal based. And, some people think it's wild that I sometimes eat 12 eggs in the morning for breakfast. Like I can put down 12 eggs like that, and still be hungry. That's what's amazing about this diet, and which I love about it is I can eat kind of as much as I want and still feel light and still feel good, and my energy's high. I don't feel just like, after I eat, I'm just super tired and can't even wake up, and my eyes, I feel good.
Yeah, and I'm, like you, I like to eat a lot and have always eaten a hell of a lot. At some point when I was 300 pounds, I was eating 9,000 calories a day pretty routinely. And so I can still put that away. One of the things I like to do is I'll take, 12 eggs is only 720 calories roughly. So it's not that much, but I mean, you take 6 eggs, you put them in a blender with a bunch of water, you blend it up and it fills the whole blender up in with this frothy mixture, and you can put some kind of flavoring in there. And that's filling. I can tell you, if you want a satiety hack, that's incredibly filling. You just don't want to move after you drink a giant blender full of, 6 eggs and water and a little bit of flavoring. So works quite well. So we are unfortunately running out of time. This has been very interesting to hear, and it's great to see you found what's working for you, and hopefully it continues with that and keep up the good work. Where, if somebody wanted to find you either for personal training purposes or for finding out what you put up on the internet, where do they go?
Yeah. So, so funny. I change my Instagram all the time, my name. But they can go find me at Heal Company _. So that's HEAL Company and _.
Okay. Heal Company _ All right. Perfect. All right. Well, thank you so much. When's your next contest? Do you have another bodybuilding contest picked out?
I'm probably not going to do one until next year, but it will be at the WBFF because that was kind of the competition I did. And I was pretty close to turning pro there. And that's when I got cancer. So that's kind of the one I'm aiming for. And it'll be in England, my hometown. So I'll probably be doing that next year.
Well, best of luck to you. Congratulations, and let us know how you do when you do that. So that'll be great. Okay, everybody. Thank you guys. I will be back here tomorrow. We don't have a guest tomorrow. It'll just be an open discussion. So if I don't see you, have a good weekend. Otherwise, I'll see some of you guys tomorrow morning. Okay. Bye, everybody. Thanks, everybody. Thanks, Adam. Bye-bye, guys.
Bye, guys.